Okay, I'll ask to unmute. Hello, Makia.
Hello.
I'm Todd. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Todd.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We are going to start in like 2 minutes. We're just letting some people on now early, and we'll let everybody in from the waiting room. We are streaming now on Facebook and on YouTube. And I know that you have to leave in 45 minutes or so. So we're going to have you go kind of be, one of the early speakers.
Sounds great.
All right. And, Sean, you two emailed back and forth, right? You corresponded.
Yes, thank you so much. And Makia, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Makia.
Oh, I knew whatever I did, it would be wrong. I knew whatever I did, it would be wrong.
Don't worry.
Makia.
I do see we have Charlton Harley in the waiting room if we want to give a quick shout out to him at some point in the program.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
I can pull up a couple of TikToks.
Could you please?
Yes.
That'd be funny. That'd be great. Now, he's a recruiter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And junior ROTC also.
Yes.
His TikToks are great.
They are.
They're great. They're funny. I love it. I love it. He would be perfect for the scuttlebutt with his trivia. Yeah. Mm-hmm. His trivia questions. I love it. I love it.
All right. Well, I will cue up this music here.
Let's do it.
And we'll get started.
Welcome, everybody, to VBC Live Happy Hour on this Monday, October 26th. My name is Todd DiPastino. I'm the director of the Veterans Breakfast Club, and this is a Veterans Breakfast Club program. We are a nonprofit here based in Pittsburgh, PA, and we've been holding veteran storytelling events since 2008. And since the end of March, we've put all our events online. We have these virtual events live 3 times a week. Plus, we have a video cast, a podcast, and there's a unique kind of vibe to the Monday night happy hour. And it's we have a quite a diverse and interesting group tonight. We have hopefully Moni McIntyre will be joining us. She has, how I always like to ask veterans, why did you join the branch of service you did? She has the most unique answer to that question I ever heard. And so I'm looking forward to having her on tonight. We have Rob Snyder, who served in the Army captain in Iraq, and he wrote 2 children's books. He's a professor at Slippery Rock University. We have Makia Harper, who is a documentary filmmaker who has made an interesting documentary about veterans. We have Brad Washabaugh. Hi, Brad. How are you? Marine Colonel from North Carolina. And he's going to share some more stories from 1983 in Beirut. We have Julie Patten. Julie, I call you a Coast Guard daughter. So that's not all that you are, but that's how I'm tagging you here. And we have Jack Wagner and I think Dana Brown. I see Dana. Hi, Dana. How are you? I know you have something to announce. Good to see you, Moni. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Before we get started, I want to introduce my co-host tonight, who is Sean Hall. He's the director of programming for the Veterans Breakfast Club.
Hi, everyone. Honored to be here. Hi, Todd. How you doing?
Good. And we have Ellie DiPastino in Chicago. She is engineering this program. She's bringing people in. She's kicking people out. She's muting people.
Exactly.
She's letting people speak. I see Charlton Harley has joined us, and I'm so happy. Your TikToks are fantastic. They're hilarious. I love them. Thank you. We want to share some of them tonight in a little bit. But I do want to let people know, as I mentioned, we have 3 live programs a week. tonight is our happy hour. Wednesday morning is our breakfast at 9 a.m. It's the same Zoom link. Please do join us if you can. Wednesday morning at 9. There's no real formal program. We just have a conversation, and it's always lively and interesting. And then on Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m., we're usually up against the end of the Steeler game. Sunday at 4 p.m., we have Greatest Generation Live, where we have stories from World War II veterans. That's always just fascinating. If you didn't catch yesterday's, you should go back and watch it on Facebook Live or on YouTube. We had Bob Buckler, B-17 tail gunner, who on his 23rd mission landed in Sweden and had the most glorious 9 months in Sweden of his entire life. He lived at a resort. He went skiing. He played tennis. He dated like Swedish royalty. And then he was finally made to go back into the war after 9 months or so. Quite a wonderful story. And then we also had Lars McKee on, who's from Sweden and who's kind of an expert on American internees, they were called in Sweden. So that's what we covered yesterday. I really enjoyed that program. But tonight is the happy hour. Oh, and one more thing that we do, apart from the live programs, is we do a pre-recorded program that I guess you could call a podcast, because it is released on podcast platforms, but it's also released on video. And that is Sean Hall's program. He's the producer and the host of the Scuttlebutt.
Yes, Todd, thank you. This week we start a 6-part series where we're just going to focus in on each individual branch. This week we started with the Air Force and had, you can see him there, our board member, Ben Wright, on. James Martin, he's our Marine veteran, and a new non-veteran, Becky Nyron, who joined me as co-host. It was exciting conversations. We always have our mail call, a phrase of the week. This week I learned what pull chocks was, and I also learned what a snake pit is.
What is a snake pit?
Supposedly it's whenever you'd go to the chow hall and all of the drill instructors would be sitting in one spot and you were trying to pass by them as quickly as possible and keep quiet so that none of them would pay attention to you or yell at you. So you never want to go through the snake pit, from what I've understood. We dive into our headlines, and then we get into a really great conversation about the Air Force with Ben, and always fun, our Scuttlebutt round, where we just sort of find obscure military headlines from across the country that we like to chat about. It's a quick 45 minutes to an hour, and a great listen and a great watch if you jump on YouTube. Ellie does a phenomenal job editing this video. You don't want to miss it there, definitely.
It really is interesting. And this week it focused, and I can say it because I have nothing to do with it. It was a fascinating conversation. Sean, you've been working through, or you're starting to work through, the branches of service, kind of covering each one, like which one should you join, which one would you want to join. And today was the Air Force. And, we had Ben Wright, retired Air Force. Ben is with us this evening. And it's just so interesting to hear kind of the differences of the branches of service. And one thing that you talked about that I had heard about before, but I don't know much about, is that breaking of the wings ceremony.
Yeah,
right?
From what I understand, you get your wings and you break them in half, and I think you give the other one to a loved one. I wasn't sure if the Navy does that as well whenever you earn your Navy wings. Does anybody have any idea on that? Yeah.
Does that happen in the Navy? Did Navy pilots go through that breaking of the wings? Does anybody know?
Well, in the submarine service, we had a ceremony when we earned our dolphins.
Yes, but you don't break the dolphin.
No. We have to. We have to drink our dolphin.
Of course you do. Of course
we put the dolphins, after we earn them. They make a concoction of alcoholic beverages, and you put it in a glass or a pitcher, and you must chug it down till you catch your dolphins in your mouth. And then they throw you over the board, and
Nothing like the Navy. Next week we're diving into the Navy on the Scuttlebutt, and I'm finishing a blog post on all of the traditions that the Navy has, and that's up there.
Yeah. Drinking your dolphins.
Drinking your dolphins. Oh, it's so great to have a submarine vet here. And so if anybody knows the wings of gold that you get in the Navy when you become a Navy pilot, do you break those in half also, or is that just a Air Force ritual? So we'll keep that as an
We'll
open
find out.
question. We'll find out. We'll find out. I know Larry Guggen's had his wings broken here when he's a Air Force pilot. Yeah, and I know, Makia, I know that you have to run soon, so we want to make sure that people hear what you've done and the documentary that you've made. You're a filmmaker in residence at Robert Morris University for the year. Where are you from?
I'm from New York. Todd, I'm based in Brooklyn, and I am here, as you mentioned, as a filmmaker in residence at Robert Morris, and I'm also teaching a documentary production class. I'm also a professor at a couple of universities in New York City.
Makia, I'm going to pass you to Sean, but Sean, you're going to want to kill me because Sean wants to talk to you, but I just want to, I want to let everybody know that I'm sure that, you've been in Pittsburgh for how long? What, 6 weeks or 8 weeks or so?
About coming up on 8 weeks.
Okay. So you definitely want to move here now, right? You love it that much.
I enjoy it. I'm thinking about it.
We get a lot of New York transfers. This coming from myself, I'm from the theater world, and we get a lot of New York transfers that go, whoa, you can get this much land for that amount? So we'd be happy to have you. I was so amazed by your bio and just kind of wanted to hear how you got your start in documentary filmmaking. It's such a specialty, and then dive into what your new project is.
Sure. So I should say I'm originally from Philadelphia, though, and I went to Temple University, and I majored in film and media studies, film and media arts. And when I came out, I thought I was going to be a video editor, and I kind of went down that route and all the winding roads that it led me to, but it also kind of made me realize that as a video editor and the type of commercial work that I was doing, I didn't have the creative control that I wanted to, and I couldn't necessarily tell the stories that I wanted to tell. So in 2008, there was a huge surge of violence in Philadelphia, and I said, what is going on, particularly gun violence? And so many people I knew, in addition to myself, had family members that were murdered and were hurt. And I said, we need to start, talking about this. We need to start creating some discussions around violence. And I said, well, what better way to do that than to create a documentary? And what I did with that documentary was highlight the work of others in Philadelphia that were working to reduce violence, but also looking at the core roots of violence. And so that was my first kind of feature-length documentary that just kind of opened up this huge space for me to produce socially aware documentaries, a number of documentaries that deal with public health, wellness, and social justice.
Awesome. And so that sort of leads us into your next project, which brings you to the Veterans Breakfast Club, which is Better Than Before, Healing After Combat. And I read this was a personal story for you. And why is that, if I might ask?
Yes, so this very much was a personal story. So Better Than Before, Healing Through Combat is kind of like the second iteration of the first project I did, which was called simply Better Than Before. And the story was about my uncle, who was a Vietnam vet. And about 8 years ago, he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma due to his exposure to Agent Orange. And so when I found out, I was just, absolutely furious. And I thought I was just going to really make this very angry, passionate film about this injustice that my uncle faced in the military, and so many others. So many other soldiers and Vietnamese. And to a certain extent, I did. It wasn't so angry. It was much more informative. What I actually went on to do was to talk about my uncle's time in the military, the trauma of war, PTSD for him, what it was like to be a soldier. He was in the Marines, and he talked a lot about how he had to kind of shed his humanity in order to essentially kill people. We also talked about the racism that he faced when he was in the military and what it was like for him to kind of go back into society after having served. But what was most interesting for me, and I was not expecting this in him telling his story, was that he kind of went on this spiritual journey, and he would never say that, but I call it that. A few years after he got out, he said, Makia, I was smoking, drinking, getting high one day, my basement, and I just heard God call my name, right? And it was in many ways the start, or at least the recognition of this kind of personal spiritual journey that he was on. And he said, at this point, I realized what was important in my life. I had kind of idolized all of these kind of material things. And I went through, all of these material things to find happiness. And, essentially I found happiness within myself, my family, these moments. And essentially, that the beginning of that journey, or the recognition of that journey, was the foundation for my uncle as he dealt with his illness. And he said, I wouldn't change anything in my life. Me going through Vietnam, having this experience, and my life coming this way, because I could have died many times over, was my lot in life. And I'm better now than I was before, even though I'm physically ill. Having come through all of this, having learned to deal with living with uncertainty, with disease and in war, has just given me so much insight into the importance of and the meaning of life. And so I thought that was so incredibly profound. And 3 months ago, my uncle died of multiple myeloma. And one of the things I said I always wanted to do, and I wanted to start this project earlier this year, but with COVID happening, it did not kind of go as planned. But I want to keep his legacy alive and his story. And what I found, there's so many other veterans that have a shared experience. So in this next iteration of Better Than Before, I want to talk to other veterans and find out what their experiences have been, what it's been like, kind of coming back into life, because I don't believe, I've never served, but I don't believe that you kind of return the same way, for better and for worse. And I think it's so incredibly important to tell these stories, because oftentimes, in particular with veterans of color, we don't necessarily get a chance to hear these stories. And some of the stories that we do hear are so incredibly negative. And those aren't, there's so much more to those narratives. So what I want to do, and what I'm working on now, is a web documentary that explores the lives of marginalized and veterans of color. And so that's part of the reason why I'm here today, because I would love to get some of those stories.
Wow, Makia. I mean, we hang our hat on our mission of veteran storytelling. It's awesome to hear your story. You kind of answered every question that I had written down, all in that. That's great. But I guess I would think, like, you have this gift from your uncle of all of his stories before he passed. And being able to share that with everybody and with the world is such an, I'm sure it's such an honor to do that. Did you have other members of your family also serve, or is it just your uncle?
Just my uncle in terms of my immediate family. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to just clarify. So the project that I did, it was an audio documentary, but I also created an art installation. And so what I did was I recreated a set from the late 1960s, early 70s, with that moment where he said he kind of had that come to God moment. So it lives in a couple of different mediums, as an audio documentary, as an art installation. Yes.
Well, hopefully we can have you back on to VBC Live for the premiere, if you'd be so kind to bring it to us. It'd be great.
Absolutely, I would love to.
Definitely. And I want to open it up. If anybody had any question, Moni, I'm sorry, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
No, it's Moni.
Moni,
Of
hi.
course you got it wrong, Sean.
Of course I
No
did.
matter what, no matter how we pronounce people's names, we pronounce it wrong the first time. I've been calling her Moni the whole time when we've been talking, and it's Moni. I knew, okay.
It's
Short for
Moni.
Monica. Short for Monica, right?
Well, it was, yeah. I had
Yeah.
legally changed.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Moni.
Well, I wanna ask Makia, have you seen this book, The Things They Cannot Say? Do you know that book, Makia?
No, I don't.
It's by, maybe other people do know it. It's by Kevin Seitz. The subtitle is Stories Soldiers Won't Tell You About What They've Seen, Done, or Failed to Do in War. And it's an easy read, but it tells you, and I think they're all white guys. I think they are, but they're still, it could easily be helpful to you. The Things They Cannot Say, Kevin Seitz, S-I-T-E-S. So,
And Makia, if you want to put your contact information in the chat, if anybody wants to get in contact with you, they want to ask you about the project or contribute to your next project, please do. Please put your contact information, or you could pass it to Sean or to me, and we could get it to somebody. So if any of you are looking to get in contact with Makia, please do let us know, and we will make that contact. And I just got to say, Makia, when I read just the title of your documentary, it immediately resonated with us because we work with veterans. We've been doing this for 12 years. Post-traumatic growth is a real thing. Absolutely it is. When you have that trauma and you go through a door, you're never going back. But there are doors ahead of you that you can go through, and people do. And we hear it all the time, and it gets expressed as wisdom. It gets expressed as the kind of spiritual journeys that you've mentioned. It gets expressed as a kind of a perspective that I'm not a veteran, and that I've always kind of yearned for the kind of perspectives that I hear in our veterans community. So, I just applaud you for having the ears to hear that story, because I think that's kind of the untold story, I think, of our veterans, is the growth, the spiritual growth that they've gone through. So thank you for coming on. Come on again.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for Moni. Am I pronouncing it right?
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And again, I just wanted to note that certainly this is open to, again, veterans of color and veterans of marginalized communities. And that
Right. Very good, Makia. I hope you join us again sometime and keep us updated on the project's progress.
Definitely.
Will do. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, Moni, for introducing yourself. This is Moni McIntyre. I have billed you as a retired Navy captain, who I'm guessing when I always ask veterans, I'm not a veteran, but I always ask them, why did you join the service? Your answer is maybe the most unique I've ever heard.
You can imagine what you've heard. So
yeah, you've had quite a. I'm going to share a picture of you. This is you in the Navy. How many years did you spend in the Navy?
28.
28 years. 28 years. Retired as a captain.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Retired as a captain. I want to show people what you look like before you join the Navy. Well, hold on a second. Oh, no, that's not you. That's you, third from the left.
Right. That's me.
So you joined the Navy as a Catholic nun.
I did. Yeah. I did. Yeah, I was at the home of a friend who was not a nun, and who asked me what she was bringing in her mail. And she got all this junk, and here was a bill from here and a bill from there, and one was join the Navy Reserve. So she ripped it out in half. I said, let me see that. Because in my religious community, we would be opposed to the military-industrial complex. And there was a lot in the Roman Catholic Church that my community was opposed to as well, particularly the sexism and racism and things of that nature. And so I thought to myself, we stay in the church, though there are issues. Why not see what's in the certain military? And that seemed like such a little tiny toe in the water way to find out. So that was 2 weeks a year and 1 weekend a month. So that's what I did.
You signed up to be a spy, essentially.
In fact, the Navy wanted to make me a spy, but then they decided that my so-called ordination as a nun precluded that, and I was fine because I didn't want to do that anyway. So yeah,
I just find this so fascinating. What attracted you to the Navy? Like you were drawn to it, clearly.
I was drawn to it. My dad had been a Marine in World War II in Korea, and so we were a pro-military family. Not crazy, but just this was a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And so I had very positive feelings, and so I just wanted to see what was going on. It was only a 2-year commitment, and so I signed up. And it was very interesting. About the first or second month I was there, I learned that the Navy and Marines were related. And so I came home and I said, Daddy, I never knew that. How come you never told me? He said, well, Mom, there's some things I didn't think you needed to know, because I was under the impression that the Marines were the greatest service ever of all time. And so, but I was pretty old then. I was like 30, I think. And so I was too old to join the Marines. And so, this would have been like sort of second place. And so, okay. So, yeah. So I was like shocked to find out what the relationship was between the Marines and the Navy. But my dad was very pleased and proud.
So he was proud. He was proud of you. And I find it also so interesting. You're so highly educated, and you've had advanced degrees, but you entered the Navy as just a seaman, right?
No, I was in what they called at that time the advanced pay grade program. So I came in as an E5.
An E5. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I came in as a yeoman second class in a clerical position.
Right, in a clerical position, right. And you spoke up about that.
Well, when I was in high school, I went to a high school with our Immaculate Heart of Mary nuns, and the philosophy seemed to be you learn or you die. So I remember being in typing class, and it was there, you learn or you die. And so I could type like a jet plane. I could type 70 words a minute, 5-minute timing test, not a single error. So I come rolling into the Navy recruiting people, and they give me, I'm a woman, right? Back then, 79. So they give me a typing test. They were blown away. So obviously I was going to be in a clerical position. That was it. So that's what I was. So yeah, I was there. I did that for a couple of years, and I was sitting in a class in what we called in the Navy career counseling school, where you learn what your benefits are and all that kind of stuff. So I was down in New Orleans, and the undersecretary of the Navy came into the class, who, Makia would be happy to know, was an African-American man, a fine, fine, fine man. He said to me, he said to the class, are there any questions? And I said, yes, I don't understand the underutilization of talent in this organization. He said, what? So everybody else was kind of like, what? Because
I love that.
you don't, when you're in those classes and somebody like that, a big shot asks you a question, you don't, nobody's got anything to say, but I was too stupid to know. So yeah, I had a question. And he said, what seems to be the issue? I said, I've got 2 master's degrees. A friend of mine's got 1 master's degree. Another guy I know has got a master's degree. And we're just doing stupid stuff. Like my commanding officer would hand me a sheet of paper and letterhead with his name at the bottom, signed at the bottom. And he'd say, write the letter and fit it in here. Now, this was 1979, kids. This was before computers. This was like, if you were lucky in the reserve center, you might get an electric typewriter. So I said to this guy, how long do you think I'm going to put up with this? When my enlistment's over, I'm out of here. And it was only 2 years. He said, Lieutenant, make a note of that. And so I was contacted before I got back to the Reserve Center, or when I walked into the Reserve Center. Well, he said, how come you're not an officer? I said, because I thought I was too old. And the fellow who recruited me didn't tell me any differently. So when I got to the door of the Reserve Center, the guy said, man, did you get my ass in a sling? And I said, oh, really? What seems to be the problem? He said, you said I didn't tell you that you could have been an officer. I said, you didn't, did you? And he said, well, no. Okay, then. So I did the work, but anybody who can see that I can't see very well. And so this was in Michigan, and I had to go down to Flat Rock, Michigan, which was south of Detroit, for some kind of an eye exam, and to see if I could pass, get admitted into the service. And so, I mean, I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see the broad side of a barn, but I'm sitting there in the chair, and this fine Navy optometrist said, we got to get you to see the Big E. I said, that one? I didn't know what, and he said, good enough, good enough. So there I was. So as they say, the rest is history. But that man, that the Undersecretary of the Navy, I wrote to him years later and told him how grateful I was, because he changed my life. That man changed my life. He changed the trajectory of my Navy career. He changed my life. So
and he did it simply by listening. He listened,
yeah.
which is what leaders should do.
Yes, sir, he did. And he also was very concerned that somebody follow up on this. So he didn't just let it wash over him.
Right.
He followed up.
Right.
So that he found out, afterwards I told him, where I was and blah, blah. And so anyway, he made a huge difference.
So once you became an officer, what was your MOS?
Well, we don't talk MOS so much when we're in the Navy, but yeah, okay. So I was always interested in getting out of town, not just because I was from Detroit, but I was always interested in getting out of town. And so I did all kinds of things. I was a communications officer. I was a weapons safety officer. I was a commanding officer. I was a couple times. I was in the Mobile Mine Assembly Group. I was a military Sealift Command. I have been all over the world at your expense, taxpayers of America, and I'm deeply grateful. So the first place I went to was Mount Clemens, Michigan. Not exactly exciting, but I went to New Orleans. I went to Pensacola, Great Lakes, Newport, Rhode Island, Norfolk, Cold Neck, New Jersey, which was beautiful, but not 5 times in a row. I went to Norway, Oakland, California, Naples, Italy 5 times. I went to Charleston, South Carolina. One of the things that I got to do was be the ethics consultant to the Navy Surgeon General, because my PhD is in ethics. And so I did that. And here's the rest of the people will be happy to know how the Navy thinks. Teaching ethics in the Navy means you are a lawyer. I am not a lawyer, but I do have a PhD in ethics. Too bad, so sad, you ain't teaching ethics in the Navy. However, I was able to teach in Bethesda at the Navy Hospital. So, and then I started that in '95, and until COVID, I was teaching was Bethesda, now it's Walter Reed, but I was teaching the physicians and dentists at Walter Reed in the AMDOT course, the Advanced Medical Department Officer course. So you paid for me to go to Bahrain, Singapore, Thailand, Okinawa a couple of times, and that's all I have on this list, and there's more. So you have done me enormous favors.
Did anybody have the idea to make you into a chaplain?
Yeah, but by that time, see, I wasn't ordained until 2000. By that time, I was in 06, and I would have had to be in 03 now.
And I should let people know you left the Catholic Church and you became an Episcopal priest.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
So as a Catholic nun, you could not have been a chaplain.
I couldn't be a chaplain because I wasn't ordainable in my tradition at that time.
Got it.
Yeah, and I wasn't interested in going from an 06 to an 03, just wasn't going to happen. So I stayed with where I was and what I did.
I want to let people know I put a wonderful link in the chat here to a link to a wonderful article on you in the chat here, where it lays out your much of your story, not just in the Navy, but also, leaving the church, entering the Episcopal Church, your teaching career. It's a wonderful article, a wonderful profile of you. And I came away from it with two questions. One is, you stayed in for 28 years. You must have liked the Navy, and it had to be more than just the travel.
Oh yeah. Well, I met amazing people. I met, as we say, I met several dirtbags. They would have kept me, but I met amazing people who were so sincere. They were from everywhere. I would never, ever trade those 28 years for anything. It's just amazing. Meanwhile, I was teaching full time at Duquesne. I taught at Duquesne for 29 years, and I taught high school in Michigan for 11 years. And so I mean, I've been a career reservist. So but yes, it was absolutely a marvelous gift in my life.
The second question I have is, what are the similarities? And I believe that there must be a lot between being in a religious order and being in the military. I would imagine there's a lot of overlap there. I mean, the kind of mission, the purpose, the community, the shared sense of, working together.
Right. Well, I dated this fellow who hated the Army, and he said it's the same deal. They give you your clothes, and that was his thing. It's just, but no, it's the sense of serving something larger than yourself. As Makia mentioned, having a sense of being called by God to do something greater than yourself. My first, some of you may know, in the Roman Catholic Church, there's a whole big deal about getting married and then divorced and getting an annulment and all that. My very first weekend I was there, a woman asked me about an annulment in the Catholic Church. Now, I've been to school for 1 million years in just about everything. And so I was able to help her, and she was so grateful. So the give and take of life, and firefighting school and all that. As they say in the Navy, a fire aboard ship can ruin your whole day. Well, you better pay attention in firefighting school, and just all those kinds of experiences that I never could have or would have had anywhere else.
One last, I'm sorry, Moni. I'm sorry, Moni, for interrupting you.
Right.
One more question. Did you ever feel that conflict between, your love of the Navy and that community, your commitment to that community, and your sister's concerns about the military-industrial complex? What Makia mentioned about, killing and war making.
Oh yeah. In fact, I had to move from one of my houses where I was living because one of the sisters there thought that I was just living so contrary to the gospel that she just couldn't deal with it. And I said, well, I may be living contrary to the gospel, but the Navy hasn't got anything to do with it. So, fine. But yeah, I mean, it was just an intolerable situation with her. So, there were most of the people supported me. But there was a minority who thought that I was, just the most terrible person, and we can't have this and all that. But they were very good. But they were tough. They were my my regional superior and my general superior wanted to know. They were concerned about this, so they wanted me to go to some very heavy-duty peace and justice people and get their take on it. So each one of them, the first time around, said it's not something I could do, but you're making sense. And then the second time around, it was a little stickier, but the general superior was leaving office in a few months, so I kind of waited. And the new one coming in was much more supportive. So, yeah,
Oh, Moni, what a fascinating conversation this is. What a fascinating person you are. Sean, I think should be wonderful for the Scuttlebutt.
Agreed. Definitely.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You could sell the Navy to anybody. You could sell it to my daughter, Ellie. And she's a hard sell.
Okay. I'll tell you, my students, Ben, are like this. My students would come to see me, my Duquesne students. And some would say to me, like, I remember this one kid in particular, he wanted to go to medical school and he wanted the Navy to pay for it. But he was at least willing to go to the Navy and be in the Navy. He didn't last forever, but he did make it. So he said to me, do you think I have what it takes? I said, can you stand to have someone get more fired up about a piece of lint on your uniform than bombs going off behind you? And if not, then go to the Air Force, because the Navy gets real crazy about little things. So,
I'm sure the Air Force does also. I'm sure the Air Force does also.
Well, yeah, but I had a friend. I was the ethics consultant to the Navy Surgeon General, and I hung out with the Army consultant and the Air Force consultant. And it was very clear that the Air Force treated their people a lot better than the Navy. Anytime we
Has that been right?
Oh yeah, anytime we went somewhere with the Navy, we were like, but we stayed in DV quarters when we went with the Air Force. Now we were 06s and we were hanging where the generals and admirals hang. We didn't go that route with the Navy. So I know the Air Force knows how to treat their people.
They sure do. They sure do.
There's one question from Kathy Sylvia for Moni. A favorite place that you were able to visit in the Navy?
I think Bahrain. Because it's so unusual. Normal people go to Singapore. Normal people don't generally. Normal people can go to Thailand. But going to Bahrain was just an enormous gift. Because at that time, in the late 90s, people weren't going to Bahrain for tourism. And so I would say that was my favorite place I could go. Yeah.
Moni, thank you so much for joining us. This is so great. We want to have you back. I want to hear more of your story. Clem, do you have a question for Moni?
Yes, I do. Moni, I'm curious. When you decided to go to the Navy from the being a nun, and that's a time period when there's a shortage of religious people in that. How did you go about explaining it to your mother superior? How did she take it? Did she try to talk you out of it, or what?
Well, everybody tried to talk me out of it, but I was the only commissioned nun in any military service at the time, probably before or since. So, it wasn't I left my community to do the Navy. No, I was doing this simultaneously.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Moni, thank you so much. Oh, Ken, do you have a question? Here you go. Hold on, Ken. Why don't you unmute yourself here? I think you're raising your hand.
No, I wasn't. I just
the other Ken
mentioned that she has a dry wit. Absolute pleasure to listen to. Thank you, Moni.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This is great. What? Somebody say something? Okay, Rob Snyder, I want to go to you next. Rob Snyder is another fascinating captain, but he's an Army captain and a children's author, professor at Slippery Rock University. But before we go to Rob, I do want to introduce two people in this order. Henry Shopke, he's a 12-year-old boy from Wisconsin. He is collecting autographs from World War II veterans. I know that Julia Parsons is sending you, Henry, if you're listening, an autograph. And I know that Roland Glenn, who's on tonight, will be sending you an autograph. And I know we also have a couple other World War II veterans with us tonight. We have Jack Watson here. He was a Marine at Iwo Jima. We have Gene Klebingot. Hello, Gene. He's joining us for the first time. He was in the Army in the Panama Canal. We have Jack Morrow. I know you were on yesterday, Jack. Maybe you'll be sending Henry an autograph. But Henry, if you want to put your address in the chat here and ask the World War II veterans to send autographs, please feel free to do so. And also feel free to email me if you want to get in touch with more World War II veterans. Henry, thank you for joining us tonight. I know if you feel like unmuting yourself and asking a question or saying hello, please. Hey, Henry, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm good.
I know we have a couple other World War II veterans who weren't on yesterday, and Gene Klebingot, he could send you his autograph, and Jack Watson, hello, Jack. And Jack could send you his autograph too. Let's, Henry, would you mind putting your address in the chat here?
Sure.
Okay.
Todd, can we ask Henry why he wants autographs of World War II veterans?
Well, I just like collecting, because I think it's cool. It's like a piece of history, So I just like collecting all the autographs. I have autographs from certain battles and stuff, and I just think it's really cool.
It's really cool. And how many do you have?
Over 50.
Over 50.
Yeah.
That is terrific. That is a terrific kind of record of history, Henry. And you just, and I said this to you yesterday, if you just kind of know a little bit about each one of the stories behind those autographs, you're learning a lot of history. So thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you for, being so devoted to this project. I also, before we get to Rob, I want to welcome Charlton Harley. Hi, Charlton. How are you? Thank you for Charlton, we have, many of us are 55 and older here. So we're not exactly into TikTok, if you know what I mean. But I have a daughter here who's 24, and she, has a TikTok account. And she said to me a few weeks ago, hey, there are some great veteran TikToks. And she started sending me links. And she sent me yours, and I love yours because we do a lot of military trivia. And I just want you to introduce yourself to everybody here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Charlton Harley. I'm a recruiter in Rochester, New York. Actually, my command is headquartered in Pittsburgh. But I've been recruiting for about 3 years, and someone introduced the account to me. I'm 48 years old, so I'm not the youngest person in the world. And I just started making videos of my future sailors. And I would ask questions at the end of PT sessions. And sometimes they get them wrong. And typically when they get them wrong is when they generate the most laughter. But it's a way for me to train them so they can be better ready for boot camp.
Ellie, I want you to share one of these if you can, just so people get a sense of what we're talking about. And if you make sure you share the audio too, please.
Future sailor, finish your sentence. Attention to
Petty Officer Harley, detail, Petty Officer Harley.
Stop running. What time is morning colors?
Petty Officer orange, blue, purple, Petty Officer.
Up and down. What time is morning colors?
Petty Officer 6 a.m. Petty Officer.
Up and down. What time is morning colors?
0600.
Said it confidently, it's still wrong. What time is morning colors?
Petty Officer 0500, Petty Officer.
Up and down. What time is morning colors?
Petty Officer 0800, Petty Officer. 08.
That's great stuff.
Finish your sentence. Attention.
That's great stuff. Great stuff. Yes, you have quite a following. So, so you're a recruiter, and are you also? Did you say junior ROTC?
So I worked out with a group of junior ROTC. So that was just they asked me to come work them out. So I don't actually do anything with the organization, but I ran a couple of PTs for them.
Do you like being a recruiter?
I do. It keeps me young. Again,
Yeah.
I'm but the people I talk to, the people I work with are all in their young 20s, and they keep this old man sort of relevant.
Carlton, I will admit that when at our programs, when we'd have a recruiter come and talk, I used to kind of give them the business a little bit and talk about the lives of and then I think I heard a lot about how hard that job is. It's a really hard job, and not many people can do it well. And so I don't make fun of recruiters anymore. I'm holding my tongue with you. And I mean, how do you get young people today to be interested in a military career?
So getting them interested is actually the easy part. The hard part is actually trying to find them. So my age group, we went to malls, we went to beaches. This age group, they don't go anywhere. I mean, if you have a presence, I went to the beach early this year, it was a beautiful Friday afternoon. It was hot, and there was nothing at the beach but grandparents and grandchildren.
Yeah.
So getting to explain the military isn't easy. It's just getting to them is difficult. They don't go anywhere. They're an absolutely virtual generation.
Which is why you have the TikTok account, and probably why
Right.
yeah, exactly. That's where you have to reach them.
Yeah. So if you don't, you're dead in the water. If you're not somehow, some way on some form of media, either video games or internet, you're not going to find and reach these young people.
We'd love to have you come on and maybe share some more of your TikToks. And I don't know, Ellie, if you want to share another one or have another, favorite of yours. And also, if you want to, explain why people might want to join the Navy. In other words, give a sales pitch here. You'd be very welcome to join us. I'm so glad that you joined us tonight.
Thank you. Anytime. I love this. I'm honored that you asked me.
We have so many interesting veterans with so many interesting stories, and it was just so cool to see like veteran stuff on TikTok, which I'd never put those two things together, and so I'm glad I did. We're going to continue to do that. But now I want to turn to Rob Snyder, and this is somebody who I've been corresponding with, over the past few years. Rob is a professor at Slippery Rock University. He's also a Army captain. I think you were in the military for 16 years. Is it, Rob?
Yes.
16 years.
I got out as a captain. Yeah.
You got out as a captain. And what I love about your story is that you did something that there's a real need for, and that is a children's book about veterans. You wrote two of them, and I just want to share. I want to share some of your pictures, but could you tell people what inspired you to write a children's book?
Yeah, sure. Well, let me back up before that, because you said you're interested in knowing, why people joined the military. So I was born on an Air Force base. My father was in the Air Force, so you would think that I would have branched Air Force. But as a young child, I grew up listening to both my grandfathers, who were World War II veterans, telling me stories about their experience. Both of them served in Papua New Guinea. So that's what drove my interest in the Army. And I enlisted in the Army in 1989, going into my first college year, and then decided this would be something that I would want to pursue. So I went ahead and went through the ROTC program at Slippery Rock and got my commission and branched military police. So I spent most of my time then as a military police, serving as a platoon leader, then company commander, ultimately deploying to Iraq with the 400th MP Battalion as the battalion operations officer. And that's where that picture was taken right there. Interestingly enough, so I got out and I became in the reserves. And I was an elementary school teacher for 10 years prior to moving to Slippery Rock University to teach incoming in-service teachers. And what motivated me to write the books was while I was still teaching elementary school, I would wear my dress greens on Veterans Day if it happened to be a day that we had school. And I had one of my students one year, just as serious as could be, said, "Mr. Snyder," he said, "why are you wearing that old person's outfit?" And it dawned on me that they only have ever seen veterans represented in maybe parades, things like that. Typically, your Korean, maybe Vietnam, and World War II veterans. And it dawned on me that us younger generations of veterans don't do a real good job of getting that information out. So that was the first little inkling that kind of led me into wanting to pursue this as a book. And then once I got to Iraq, it really became solidified. And we can go that direction. I can go a lot of different directions with it. So
so that's interesting. You had the idea.
Iraq, right?
Yeah, you had the idea for a book before your deployment.
Right. Yes, that was while I was still teaching elementary school. It was an interesting whirlwind of about 4 months, because I had finished my PhD and defended my dissertation shortly after 9/11. And at that same time, I had started in January at Slippery Rock University full-time, and within 2 months was activated for the Iraq War. So in a 4-month period, I went from defending a dissertation, moving to a full-time teaching position at Slippery Rock, to living in the desert in Baghdad for a year's deployment. So
I always like to
yeah,
ask.
it was quite
I always like to ask the question: do you remember first landing in Iraq and what your impression was when you first arrived?
Yeah. So and that was another kind of convoluted story. So for those that Henry maybe is not quite on, he seems to be well versed in military history. For those that remember, when the war first kicked off, we were supposed to have a contingent that was supposed to come through the north through Turkey. So we were going to have sort of the sweep up through Kuwait, and then the group coming in from Turkey. And my battalion was one of the ones that was supposed to come in from the north. Well, Turkey balked at the last minute, and they shifted our mission. Anyone that's been in the military knows, it doesn't matter what you train or plan for, whatever you do, it's going to be something totally different. So they flew us into Kuwait first. And when we got to Kuwait, we basically spent 2 weeks there just adjusting to the heat. At that point, the temperatures were around 120 degrees, and you just tried not to die, really, the first couple of weeks. It was interesting because you could tell new soldiers when they hit the ground, and we didn't know this. We were sort of the butt of the jokes, and there's a pun intended there, when we landed, because when you first get into that intense heat, you're sweating constantly, and most people would break out with a rash, particularly in between your legs. You would get a really bad rash, and you couldn't walk with a normal walk because it was just so raw. So you would walk with sort of a gait, almost like an orangutan or chimpanzee walks, and they called it monkey butt. Yeah, so they could tell, there's a group of monkey butt. They're new, so you could tell. And once I was there for a while, you could see the same thing with new people coming in. But we were only in Kuwait for a short period of time. At that point in time, they were trying to figure out what to do with us, because our original role was to collect enemy prisoners of war that were trying to flee north towards Turkey. But if you all remember, things took a dark, ugly turn early on. The KBR truck drivers, so the contracted truck drivers delivering things through Iraq from Kuwait, were being captured by these jihadists and beheaded on YouTube. So our first mission became to basically ride in the seats with those truck drivers. We would send a squad of military police out, and we would provide the security for them 2 days north, all the way to Balad in Iraq, and then 2 days back. So we did that for about a month, and then they flew our battalion into Baghdad, because that's when all the chaos was happening. The 3rd Infantry Division had just moved through. Looting and pandemonium was going on. And interestingly enough, all of our equipment, trucks, vehicles, all of that was still on a ship in the Mediterranean waiting to be offloaded. So they fly us into Baghdad on Chinook helicopter, and battalion size, we have close to probably 350 individuals, and they assign us 6 jails and a prison to run across Baghdad, and they give us 2 Humvees. Now, this is the one thing that's always amazed me about the military, is the ingenuity of the American soldier, because we had some soldiers that knew how to hotwire vehicles, and they went out on the streets and they found us a bus, and they hotwired the bus. They found us an Isuzu pickup truck. They hotwired that, and then we mounted our machine gun in the back of the Isuzu pickup truck with an office chair for a swiveling chair, and we transferred our prisoners to the jails with this, Iraqi bus that was hotwired. And sometimes, occasionally it would stall in the middle of a bad section of town. We'd get out to pull security, and the bus drivers trying to hotwire it in the back, the engine and things like that. And but we made it work, and eventually we got some vehicles and was able to make it work. But anyone that's been in the military knows you have a mission, you get the mission done. It doesn't matter what you have, what excuses you have for not getting it done. And the ingenuity and the resourcefulness of the American soldier just leaves you shaking your head sometimes. It always is very impressive. I will have to say, though, I did branch the Army, and back to Moni's comment about the Air Force treating their people better, or living much better. We were in Baghdad for 6 months at that point in time. Still didn't have cots. We were sleeping on the ground, being destroyed by sand fleas, still eating MREs. And the Air Force come in, built themselves a dining facility with air conditioning, with soft serve ice cream. And we would watch them coming out, eating their soft serve ice cream. They had guards posted so the Army soldiers couldn't get in. And it was at that point in time that I realized I should have followed my dad's footsteps and probably went into the Air Force. It's the only time I've ever regretted being in the Army rather than the Air Force. But no, it's been a wonderful experience.
I see.
You knew I wasn't kidding. You knew
I knew it. I was smiling as soon as you said it, Mommy. I was like,
yeah. You know.
Larry Guggen's been right. Yeah, come on. I mean, I love it. I love it. I saw Larry laughing.
Okay, so yeah, that's sort of the real short synopsis. But anyways, sitting in my tent in Iraq, we had a bad sandstorm, and so all our operations were suspended. And it was at that point that I thought back to that student and what he had told me, and I thought, you know what, I should start writing a story about this now. So I actually penned the first draft of What is a Veteran Anyway in my tent in Iraq during the middle of a sandstorm.
Oh, how neat.
That's how it all.
How great.
Really out. Yeah.
And there's such a need. There's such a need for this book. There's such a need, I think, to communicate what a veteran is simply to young people today, to children today, because there really are so comparatively few of them of your generation than there were of the Vietnam generation and older. It's easier for these kids to go through their daily life without really knowing a veteran or knowing that they know a veteran.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I ask you one other question? Okay, no, you go ahead.
I had some friends that served in Desert Storm, and for some reason, they particularly never really came back wanting to sort of be visual, out there in the community. And I think it's true of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars too, but those have been going on for so long that there's just so many more of us that I think it couldn't help but be, more visible, out in the community. But yeah, I don't think they do nearly as good a job as the older veterans do.
I've talked with enough veterans who did similar kind of detail that you did, similar kind of work in Iraq that you did as an MP, guard of prisoners. And I know enough of it to know that that was a very hard job. What was coming back like and kind of becoming a civilian again, or mixing into civilian life again?
Yeah, and that kind of, I started thinking about that when Makari was on talking about that. I think, everyone has stuff to process, no matter what you've seen or experienced. It just changes you. It really does. And what I've seen, particularly for my soldiers that I've, continued to keep in touch with and other colleagues and so forth that have been over there, is when you come back, you have to come up with a new mission, because those of you that are in the military know you get through those hard times because you have the people around you and you have the mission. And when you get out, you lose those people around you. And you also lose your mission. And you can just drift aimlessly and really just sort of sputter and not successfully pull through a lot of that emotional stuff unless you come up with a new mission. And my new mission became educating, our youth on what veterans are. Number one, just to make sure that, down the road, they continue to carry on with what, all these veterans have done. But, also more importantly, just to make sure that they recognize and show the respect that the veterans deserve. And it's not that they're unrespectful, but, having taught elementary school for so long, I know that they really don't understand veterans. And that's why the book, What is a Veteran Anyway? It breaks it down into very easy terms for young children on what do we eat, what do we drink when we're in wartime? How do we shower? All those kinds of things. It makes it concrete and real world to them. And I see you have a photo of one of my school assemblies, and I do a lot, particularly this time of year. Well, when there's no COVID. Typically, I'm teaching on campus 2 days a week, and the other 3 days of the week through the whole month of October and November, I'm out at local school districts, and it's branched out. I've been going as far as South Carolina and Florida, but I'll travel to these schools and I'll do school-wide assemblies, and it's really amazing. Questions that they ask are really interesting, and they really have some good ones. And one of the things that's made me feel good is that teachers have given me a lot of feedback and said, "Wow, you really know how to explain this stuff to them." And that's the dual career I have. Having served as an elementary school teacher and as a soldier allows me to bring those two things together. And that's kind of what led me in that direction of, continuing that, because you got to do what you know. And that's the two areas that I know. And, a lot of teachers say they try to bring in veterans to talk to the kids, and they start, using the acronyms and things like that. And it just kind of goes over their heads, especially if they're first grade, second grade with that. So
Rob, I should have read your book before I started the Veterans Breakfast Club. I tell you, I could have used that book.
Yeah.
Todd, I find it interesting.
But yeah, good, Sean.
Yeah, I have a 10-month-old right now, and you know, I recently started with the Veterans Breakfast Club and have thought about, okay, when she says, "Dad, what do you do?" You know, it's going to be difficult to sort of have her understand that. I'd love to get your book, but one thing obviously I do every night is read children's books to her before bedtime, and my wife and I have our favorites, and it always seems like you have one incredible writer and you have one incredible artist to be able to like bring this story, this idea to life. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you worked with your illustrator to be able to make the book.
Yeah. So, and again, just real quick, the publishing process was also sort of a long roundabout thing. So when I got back, you know, from Iraq in 2004 in December, I started shopping the book around, trying to find a publisher, and I found one in New York, Champion Press, and I met with the you know, the publisher in New York City. We signed the contract. I actually have 4 books at the time, and 2 of them are published now. But anyway, she signed up for 4 of them. And this one was ready to go to press with an in-house illustrator, which I didn't hear from. I didn't get to connect with. I really had no say in how it turned out. But they went bankrupt before the book was published, and I had to go back and start all over again. But that was actually a godsend in looking back, because when I found the new publisher, she immediately matched me up with Ron Himmler. And Ron Himmler has illustrated over 200 children's books, and he's won awards for his illustrations. And he did the illustrations for one called The Wall by Eve Bunting. It's another really good military one. It's about the Vietnam Wall, so it's what's called The Wall. And she immediately thought of that book and matched him up with me. So it was great. Now, the interesting thing is he was not a veteran himself. So, you know, he did the draft sketches, and then I had to kind of adjust him because I wanted everything to be accurate. So if a patch wasn't on a uniform correctly the way he had it illustrated, or the flashlight wasn't the kind of flashlight we were using, and I almost felt like I was being nitpicky, because here's this established, you know, award-winning illustrator, and here I am, a first-time author. It was my first book, and I'm trying to tell him, you know, what to fix. So it was a little bit of a humbling experience, but he was great. You know, he did all that, and then he also then did the illustrations for the second one. So we did a lot of communication, mostly through just emailing back and forth, mostly through the publisher, who also is in New York. And Ron now is living in Arizona, but he's originally from Cleveland. But so we would work through that. But he would do these illustrations in actual watercolor charts. So they were full-size watercolor paintings. And then they were digitally, you know, sized for the books. So it's pretty amazing work.
You know, Rob, we have the holidays coming up. I think we have some grandparents here in the room with us. If people wanted to buy copies of your book and give them for the holidays, how would they do so? What do you suggest?
Well, there's 3 different ways. They can go to the Blue Marlin website. That's the publisher. They're sold through there. They can get them right through Amazon as well. That's the fastest way probably to get them, is through Amazon. And somehow it's the cheapest way too. I don't know how Amazon does it. They get the books from my publisher and they sell them cheaper than my publisher or I can sell them. But if people want them autographed or signed, they can order them right through my website, and it's just robertsnyderbooks.com, and they can order them on there. And then once I get that order, I send an email to whoever ordered it and say, hey, you know, thank you for purchasing it. Would you like me to write a message or an inscription on the inside before I mail it out? Because those ones actually come directly from me. If you get it from Amazon or from the publisher, it goes out from those locations. So I don't have hands-on on those particular books. So those are the different ways to do it. Just real quick, the second book there. So the first book, What is a Veteran Anyway, won the Trade Book of the Year award in 2017, the year it came out. And because it did so well, the publisher right away was like, hey, let's go ahead and get your next book going. So Why Did Daddy Have to Leave is actually a book about the feelings that my own children experienced. They were in kindergarten and second grade at the time, and they really had a tough time, you know, with because you know they're seeing the stuff on TV with CNN coverage and all that stuff. And all that stuff. And, you know, we didn't really have much communications early in the war. There was a few sat phones, but not, it wasn't like now where you can get on the internet and FaceTime with families back home. So it took a real toll on them. So, that book is about their experiences. And I've had a lot of school guidance counselors and psychologists tell me they use that a lot with some of the kids that they have who have parents that are deployed and kind of going through some of those feelings. Now, it's called Why Did Daddy Have to Leave? And I make that as no slight on any of the women veterans. It's a more personal story. Whereas when you go through What is a Veteran Anyway, we have women very well represented in that book, in the illustrations and so forth. But that one is more of a personal story about my particular family. And that was designed, like I said, more to help kids understand when they have parents go away for long periods of time, sort of what and how to deal with it.
What's your next book, Rob?
Well, I've got two other ones already waiting in the wings. Actually, three other ones. So I've got one about Memorial Day. The problem with that one right now is it's hard to create a book about Memorial Day that's not so sad that you would leave kids sobbing when you would leave an assembly. So I'm trying to put it in a way that's going to get the true nature of Memorial Day and the true reason we celebrate it across without it being to the point where it's super emotional. So working out the details of that. I also have one called The New Pony Express. And, obviously the original Pony Express was about the dangers of the cowboys riding the mail across the Western Expanse. And this one is about our first duty riding with those mail trucks, from Kuwait through Baghdad to Balad. And it's just kind of highlights the dangers that, the soldiers and contractors were facing in basically the wild west of Iraq in those early months of lawlessness going on there. So that's a picture book. And so those two are kind of, on the wings and ready to go. And I've about 3 or 4 other things started. So, I just kind of take one thing at a time. But right now I've really been focusing on these two and getting the message out to the schools. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our program and talking about these books. They are great. And I know that, Sean, thank you for putting in robsnyderbooks.com link in the chat here on the Zoom side. Yeah, if people want to contact Rob, that's the best way to contact him. Thank you, Rob.
I do see there were a couple of questions in the chat here. Someone had put in there only one sandstorm. There were many sandstorms. It was just the first sandstorm that I decided to write the book. But yes, we were involved in many of the sandstorms there, and they are extremely brutal. You can't even see your hand in front of your face, and you wouldn't want to open your eyes anyways if you were doing that. But yeah, so help with Memorial Day. I don't want to sit here and try to read these, taking up the air here.
Well, feel free to chime in.
So anyways, I'll be.
Yeah, feel free to chime in later if you want. I would love to have you on again, Rob. You're another great scuttlebutt guest, huh?
There are definitely some veteran authors out there for kids' books that I think it's a great opportunity to have a podcast on that specifically.
I agree. I think that would be really cool because it's really important. Yeah. Thank you, Rob. I want to go to somebody everybody here knows, Jack Wagner. Hey, Jack, how are you? I'm going to unmute you. Oh. I want to thank Ken Kazak for inviting you to come on the program tonight. I know you're with Pittsburgh Hires Veterans, Vietnam Marine, and I know you have a big event coming up on Veterans Day, your first annual Veterans Bike Ride.
Well, Todd, first off, thank you for what you and your great staff do and your board of directors. And I've enjoyed immensely myself and Dana Brown, our executive director, just sitting here tonight and hearing the various people who are veterans and family members of veterans and their unique stories. There hasn't been a time where I've attended one of your events that I haven't walked away just amazed listening to fellow veterans and their families and the impact on their life. So thank you for what you're doing and continue to do tonight. And the documentary by Makia, myself being a Vietnam veteran, a Marine veteran, much of what you have said, and I'm sure what you will say going forward, will be extremely unique. There's no doubt. Pittsburgh Hires Veterans, Todd, as you know, has been around for approximately 5 years. We have a great board of directors and a great staff, and we have a single mission of helping veterans and spouses of veterans find jobs. And we've been very successful doing that with a great staff of people. Again, Dana Brown, our executive director. We have Michelle Fallett, who's works here, Jim Rossi and Brian Harkins, and all of them do a magnificent job working individually, counseling veterans and directing them, pointing them in the right direction for employment, gainful employment. And while we do that, we also try to create greater awareness of what Pittsburgh Hires Veterans is all about. And we do that in unique ways. Earlier in this year, we had a veterans blood drive during COVID-19 when virtually no one was having a blood drive, and it was very successful. We generally have an annual fundraising event on Veterans Day. And in the past, one of our board members has sponsored that, but obviously there's nothing of that kind going on now due to COVID-19. So we came up with a unique idea to have a Veterans Memorial Day bike tour. And you have the memorials on the screen right now. And unfortunately, many Pittsburghers, even in southwestern Pennsylvanians, have never visited the magnificent memorials that are here representing the dedication and commitments of veterans from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and we have a Medal of Honor recipient memorial in Homestead. So we decided to have this bike tour on Veterans Day. And we all have to keep our fingers crossed that the weather is good. It generally is that time of year. But we think it's something very unique. So we're going to kick it off at World War II Memorial on the North Shore. Retired Marine Corps General Tom Jones, who started Semper Fi Odyssey and Outdoor Odyssey up in Somerset, where he has truly helped thousands of veterans reconnect with their civilian life. We'll kick it off just with a few words talking about the importance of veterans in our country and the importance of Veterans Day. We have a magnificent sponsor in Highmark who is sponsoring this event. Then we'll go on to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. A good buddy of mine, TJ McGarvey, who chaired putting that Veterans Memorial there, and a great team of people. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to every Vietnam veteran and Vietnam veterans' families. And then we'll stop at the Korean War Memorial. And when we all think of Korea, all we have to do is look at North Korea and South Korea today, and the difference between those two countries and what Korean War veterans have done to make South Korea a democratic society versus a communist state. And then we'll go for approximately 10 miles to Homestead. And we already have the mayor of Homestead, Betty Epser, and the mayor will welcome people to Homestead, and we'll talk about the John Kelly memorial that has been there and has been relocated recently, a Medal of Honor recipient. And oh, by the way, we have a high number of Medal of Honor recipients in our region, maybe higher proportionately to any area of the country. So the whole veteran memorials in our region, I think, properly represents all the people in this region that have put their life on the line for our country. So thank you for letting us just share a little bit of information about the Veterans Day bike tour, which is on November the 11th, and it'll begin at about 9 a.m. You can go to Pittsburgh Hires Veterans website to get all the information you need and to sign up for the bike tour.
Great, Jack. So we'll put the Pittsburgh Hires Veterans website here in the chat on the Zoom side and on the Facebook side. If people want to join up, 9 a.m., you meet at the World War II Memorial on the North Shore. That's where you take off, and it's a 20-mile. I hear it's very level, yes, not too strenuous. General Jones isn't going to leave us in the dust, right?
No, he's not.
Okay, good. Good, because and you'll do 20 miles, 4 memorials. A wonderful thing to do on Veterans Day, especially now, that we don't have our, in-person, face-to-face Veterans Day breakfast at Duquesne, or, most of those activities are canceled. So I think it's a genius thing to do, to come up with this bike tour. So we'll put the.
Thank you. Thank you. And there'll be free parking on the North Shore also.
Very good. Oh,
yes.
And for those of you who have not seen the Korean War Memorial, it's a hidden gem. It's probably, like, most of us can see the World War II Memorial, from our cars, and the Vietnam Memorial. But it's harder to see the Korean War Memorial. Take the time to go see that if you haven't. It's really beautiful. Bert Kennedy can tell you that. But it's, those memorials are each different, each very moving. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Todd.
Jack, did anybody ever tell you that you have a great voice for radio? I want you to read the phone book to me. It's just, it's like a fine whiskey.
And Sean, also a great face for radio. and we have Ken Kazak, who's been our co-coordinator, who's done a magnificent job helping us arrange and set up this entire bike tour.
Yes, I know. Ken has been reminding me about it too. Ken, yeah.
This one thing, Dana and I went for a sample ride some weeks ago, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe Bert can help out. It seems that they've added a new monument at the Korean War Memorial. Like right when you come down the ramp on the left side, there was a large monument there. It was cordoned off with yellow caution tape, and I've been there 50 times. I've never seen that before.
Huh. A new piece to it. If Bert doesn't know about it. All right. Well, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Jack. And that's the Veterans Day bike ride. Begins at 9 a.m. at the North Shore World War II Memorial. I see Brad Washabaugh here. Hey, Brad.
Hi.
How are you, Colonel?
Very well. Enjoying the night. And Jack, say hello to the general for me. I've served with him before, and he's a real fire plug, full of energy. And I'm sure he's going to spread the word and get people motivated, get them moving.
If you cannot be motivated by General Jones, then nothing's going to motivate you. Absolutely.
Hey, Brad, I stuck here. I came in when it started. I've heard wonderful stories, and I'm looking forward to hearing you.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. That's my brother, Doug. He hung in this time, Todd. And
Doug, I think I called you a bad name last time.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, for leaving. I'm going to share a picture of Brad. Brad, last time you talked a bit about 1983, the Marine mission in Beirut, which is not as well known as even the Gulf War, but it was kind of an intervention into a country that was in the midst of a 15-year civil war. Israel had just invaded Lebanon. It was an absolute mess. There weren't 2 sides or 3 sides or 4 sides. There were about 7 or 8 different sides. And there were Marines right in the middle of it. And it wasn't good.
it was a very chaotic situation. I was a rifle company commander with India, 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines. We were on a Westpac out of Hawaii. And we were in Kenya at the time and told to get on ship. And in a very short order, we set sail up through the Suez Canal and came up on the coast of Lebanon. And during the transit, we knew that we were going to potentially go to war. The mood changed quite a bit, got very serious. But the Marines, we were well trained, but the mission was very vague. I mean, it was to have a presence. I mean, it was a peacekeeping force. I mean, the motto was they came in peace. And of course, you know, on October 23rd, 1983, over 240 servicemen lost their lives. And
yeah, they did. And I'm going to show a couple different cartoons here that I found. You and I corresponded a bit about some cartoons, and I found some others. I think this captures the dilemma, you know, the conundrum that you found yourself in. U.S. Marine Corps monuments, Iwo Jima on the left, Beirut 1983 on the right. And then you have this this one where you could see there's an officer kind of briefing his men. A bullet is bouncing off his helmet, showing a map of Lebanon. Okay, Marines were faced with Druze and Shia Muslims being backed by the Syrians against the Christian phalangists. The Druze and the Shias are divided amongst themselves, as are the Christians. The Israeli pullout is leaving a gap that the Lebanese army probably can't fill, and the PLO is creeping back in. Nobody likes us, and it's all preceded by 2,000 years of bloodshed. Any questions?
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the problem. You know, the Israelis invaded Lebanon, and they really created a vacuum very quickly when they left, and that was in September. And that's when we arrived. I arrived around the 13th of September, and from the ship, we saw firing going back and forth from building to building, from hilltop to hilltop, with no rhyme or reason. And, you know, as possible reinforcements, we went ashore to do reconnaissance and meet up with the Marines on the ground. And I wanted to spend some time, if you could go to that picture with me and Mike Haskell, please.
Oh, yes, I will. Here, let me go. Let me get that just later in the, I will do that. So this was your first exposure to war.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, we felt well trained, but, you know, I did experience being shot at by a sniper. And it was, you know, it was first puzzling about why is he shooting at me? And then I was glad he was such a bad shot. But, you know, 3 rounds came in the tree above our heads. I was talking to, at that time, Captain Roy, who had already sustained some casualties in his company. And he was very hardened, I think. And, you know, I was trying to lower myself as low as I could to not create a target. But the Marines there were very, I think, put in a tough situation. Tactically, it was not a good position. They were out in the open. It was near the Beirut International Airport, surrounded by hills, as you see here. You know, I thought, you know, just, Todd, I guess the message I wanted to give is October 23rd, 1983 was really a bookend for a lot of the terrorist acts that have gone so many times over the years. And Beirut is forgotten about in a lot of people, and here I am on top of the BLT headquarters, 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, that was later blown up.
And BLT, that's the building that was blown up on October 23rd, 1983.
Yeah, that's where the battalion landing team was headquartered. I was on ship. We had the ability to travel back and forth and stay on ship. There was a lot of Marines in this building, and the building was quite hardened. I mean, it was a 4-story. It had taken some hits before and stood up very well.
There's a picture of the building.
Yeah. And, you know, when I went into the building to look around, it was filled with Marines and cots and offices. And it was like old homecoming week, because I had the chance to meet up with Captain Mike Haskell again, a friend that I had first served with in Okinawa. And, you know, I'm from Penn Hills. I graduated from Clarion. And my first duty station, I met up with Captain Haskell, and he was an old salty guy. He was a drill instructor. He had 2 master's degrees. He graduated with honors in every school he went to. He was the epitome of a Marine officer. And when we first met, I was in a room with other lieutenants, and he said, "Brad, welcome aboard. Where are you from?" I said, "Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania." He says, "You're kidding me. Pittsburgh? The Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania." Yeah, really, this is unbelievable. What part of Pittsburgh? I got to know. I said, "Penn Hills." He said, "Oh, geez, Penn Hills. Guys, do you believe this? He is from Penn Hills." And he said, "Okay, how far from the high school?" And I said, "The intermediate high school or the senior high school?" He said, "The senior high school." "Okay, now how far from the 7-Eleven?" He went on for minutes on this, and finally said, "Brad, you're not going to believe this." And I was hoping I found somebody from Pittsburgh. It would be my pal. He says, "I grew up 2,000 miles west of there in Los Angeles. Welcome aboard." Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you go.
But Mike was a jokester. He was with the weapons company commander there, and when I saw him, it was great to meet up with him. And as you know, we got pulled out of Lebanon early in October, a couple of weeks before the building was blown up, and we were called over to Iran. And his name just popped up right away on the casualty list. And I felt a real loss, you know, shock and loss. And Mike Haskell is buried in Quantico, Virginia. And every chance I get to go down there and just remember him. And he's just one of many personal stories of sacrifice And this is why I think we should remember days like 1983, October 23rd. You know, the fallen should not be forgotten. And this war on terrorism, the acts like this need to strengthen our resolve. I mean, we need to remember, and we need to commit, and we need to be in great appreciation of our young service members that go to war for this country.
And you're right that it was very much a bookend to kind of the era we're living in now. We couldn't have known that at the time. You couldn't have known that, but it was kind of the first of many that would come. And here's this was, I think it's the largest non-nuclear explosion since the Vietnam War, maybe one of the largest explosions in history.
Yes.
Non-nuclear explosions. And I want to show a memorial that's near Camp Lejeune, correct?
Yes, this is right in Jacksonville. As you know, those casualties mostly came from Jacksonville, fathers, coaches. Just a great void was left in that tragic day. Every year there's a ceremony, a memorial. You'll see the names inscribed over there, and there are, as you know, Bradford pear trees that were planted in the main road coming in, and they've transferred trees now over to Memorial Grove. And very much the Beirut incident is alive in Jacksonville, North Carolina.
Isn't that wonderful? You know, I'm going to have, Brad, could we share this story about the Marine who drew a gun another time?
Yeah, this is a friend of mine, Chuck Johnson. We served together in Okinawa, and completely a great story about him and what he did in Beirut with a 45 caliber pistol.
I love it. It's like, man, did he have guts?
Yeah. We didn't know whether he was going to be court-martialed or given a medal. You know, it was going to be one or the other.
That's right. That's right.
But he is such a reserved person. A lot of people thought he was a hot dog that would do it, but he had no other choice. He couldn't tell his Marine to go stop that tank. So he just went out there and stopped it with his 45.
Well, let's save that. If you wouldn't mind, Brad, let's save that story for another time down the road, maybe next week, because it is a good one and it deserves retelling in an appropriate way. Thank you for coming on again, Brad, and thank you.
One last thing, if I can.
Yeah.
You know, digging through all my maps and photographs, I came across, I reconnected with some Marines, and I found out there was a lieutenant in our battalion who is now a congressman, and he has put forth a resolution to make the 23rd of October National Remembrance Day. And when I heard his name was Greg Pence. His name is Greg Pence. And then I find out he's the older brother of the current vice president. So, you know, it's a small world. And it just goes to show you how people connect in ways. And the way you and I have connected with our common roots in Mount Lebanon, too, is just amazing.
That's right. So you knew Greg Pence back in the Marine Corps when he didn't have gray hair.
Yeah. When he weighed a lot less, too.
Right. Oh, how great. Oh, this great stuff. Thank you, Brad. And Brooke and Douglas.
Yeah, Brooke, my daughter, she's in Dallas, Texas, and she tuned in all tonight to hear her dad talk. So hello.
Brooke, I got to tell you, your father, I don't know how you keep up with him. He is a ball of energy. I know you just ran in the Marine Corps Marathon, right, last week?
Yes. Yep.
So, and you ain't no spring chicken, Brad.
66.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing to me. I mean, no offense there with that, but I'm old too. So I'm just amazed the kind of, you know, the energy and the focus that you have. Julie Patten, how are you? I'm going to unmute you here. I know we have just we're past time a little bit, but I do want to still have you. I've been referring to you as a Coast Guard daughter.
That's fine.
And I know that you're more than that. But for our purposes here, you did something magnificent, I think, for readers, for history, for your father's memory, for your family. And that is you published your father's remarkable letters from World War II. He was a Coast Guard officer in the Pacific. He seemed to have gone everywhere and seen everything. And he wrote about it beautifully in expert prose back home to his parents. He was an English professor when he joined the Coast Guard. So, you know, he knew how to write. He knew how to string words together. And you have this book that you sent to me, and I read and loved it. Absolutely loved it, and highly recommend to anybody who's interested And the only thing I don't like about it, Julie, I don't like the title. It's not just another side of World War II. It's like he's smack and dab in the middle of the war in the Pacific.
Well, no, but by another side, I meant he looks at it totally differently from most people.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. It's his perspective that's different.
Yeah, totally.
He's eagle-eyed and very perceptive about people and very candid in his letters. I imagine, I mean, he must have been the censor because he allowed a lot of stuff to get through.
That's true. He was pretty sneaky.
He was pretty sneaky. And I asked you to come on, if you would, to kind of, read a passage. I said, you could pretty much read a random paragraph from the book and it'll be wonderful. You have copies of the book that you would like to send to people for free, people who just want to read it and enjoy fine writing and, firsthand view of the war in the Pacific. Do you have a passage prepared for us tonight?
Sure. All right, this is shows his beauty and love of nature. He says, "Last night I had the 4 to 8 watch, which embraced in one watch the beauties of an almost tropical moonlit night, the almost unreal tenderness of a drowsy dawn, and the effulgent beginning of a new day. You see, the bridge is open to the sky. It surmounts all save the mast, and one is put in an excellent position to see each change, each star swing out of position and snuff its light, each morning cloud rouse itself and spread its wings."
Oh my, what a way with words he had.
He did.
Boy, do you remember him as being a wordsmith in your youth?
Oh yeah, I mean, my dad didn't die till I was 36 or 40. So, oh yeah, he was very well spoken, and he was kind of a Renaissance man. So in this book, you'll see his love of nature and his description of, the boat and various people's duties. And then he gets very philosophical. And then he talks in detail about the Battle of Saipan and the Battle of Leyte, both of which he was involved in. And he was the commissary officer, so he talks about, food preparation, and he, as you can see here, the menus that he made. And then he was a lover of animals, and he snuck animals aboard. He brought a monkey aboard and a parrot, and talked about fermented alcohol, or however, with pineapples.
Yes. Yes. And do you want to, I don't know if you have that passage, marked easily so you can get to it. If you wouldn't mind reading that to close us out, I think that's a nice way to close out a happy hour.
That's true. Oh, it is. Okay. Because I did find one about sake if you.
Oh, sure. Do sake.
Okay. One of the battery positions found 2 large wooden kegs buried in the ground. They told me about it, so I went ashore to get them. We thought it was sake. As a matter of fact, I was hiding behind them during the sniping. When we got them back to the ship, the pharmacist's mate, who went with me, hid them in the bilges. Then we descended like thieves to open them and have an orgy. What luck! Nearly lost our lives over 2 kegs of soy sauce, which the Japs use on rice. It's delicious sauce, better than you buy in the States. Our Filipino steward pays 45 cents a pint for it. There are almost about 20 gallons in this loot. I think I'll bottle it and sell it to him. The pharmacist's mates and I were going to sell it for $5 a shot if it were sake. What with what we went through to get it. All I could think of as I lay behind the kegs was someone saying, "That stuff will be the death of you yet."
And these are letters home. I think that's what gets me about your dad's writing. He's not writing a memoir. He's not writing a novel. He's writing letters home that he thinks that, it's for an audience of 2 people, his parents. And it's just beautiful. So, Julie, I know you're very generously have offered to send the book out to anybody who wants to read it. And so if anybody does not have a copy of it and would like a copy, let me know. Email me, put a message in the chat right now, and I will get that information to Julie, and she will put the book in the mail to you. If you're a reader, if you enjoy reading, it's absolutely worth the read. I know it's on Pat Andrews. You're getting one. I know very, very soon. I know you are. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Julie, for hanging in there to the very end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's see if anybody has any. Okay, Chad, you're getting one. Chad Riddle, you'll get one. Ida May, he's going to get one.
He already has one, and he's already read it.
And it's very good
already.
Yes, and I'd like to thank you for it. It was excellent.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I'm glad you read it.
And I also, when I heard you talk before, you said you didn't know about the LST. His LST was built in Evansville, Indiana. It was shipyards were along the river, and they set them down the Mississippi without the mast because they wouldn't clear the bridges. They were referred to generically as cornfield shipyards.
That's right.
Interesting.
So we got Ken Ruzicki, Chad Riddle, Rob Snyder. You're all getting copies of the book. Dale Gower is a Coast Guard veteran, Julie. So, and he's read everything, and if he likes it, that's a high,
good,
high review, 5-star review indeed.
Good.
This is great. Thank you all for joining us for this wonderful program. Wow, what a wide-ranging program. I hope to see some of you at least on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Gene Klebingot, you're going to join us, I hope, at 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning. And then, of course, for Greatest Generation Live on Sunday, November 1st, we're going to have Warren Goss, D-Day veteran Warren Goss, on Greatest Generation Live. And if you know Warren, you know he's got a lot of stories, and he's fun telling them. So I'll see you then. Hopefully see you Wednesday morning. Take care.